Love that voice.
The you fall in love with the Zoom voice?
Oh yeah, that Zoom voice, recording in progress. It's lovely.
Hello, hello. We're back again for another chat. This is Other Ink Thursday, where I, Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, talk to somebody about their ink. And this interview, I'm joined by Gene Koo, Sticker Doodle Games himself, and we are going to talk about, becoming a publisher, pitching games. I want to know about what Design in the DMV is all about, and also, mindfulness is like a theme of your work, Gene. So I want to ask you about that. So like, there's a lot of questions that I have. I'm excited to talk to you. Thank you for being on my interview.
I'm honored to be here.
You turned it way down. You were so excited a minute ago, and now you're like, oh yes, now the camera's on. I'm very calm. I'm
Yep,
Gene.
yep.
Uh,
Well, you said mindfulness. I just have to go there. So, you know.
well, it's a thing. I mean, it's on all of your stuff. Is like, for more games, for more fun and mindful experiences, go to my website. Like it's like you're putting it out there as like a thing that you're about. And so I want to ask about that, but that's getting into jumping in the middle of the interview. I want to go back to to earlier on in your life, right? And ask you about like what is your I like to start with like the early memories of games. Like what are your games like? eh, Do you have like a game that you remember as like, oh, this is a game that has like rules and it comes in a box, and as opposed to like, we're playing hopscotch or whatever. That's a game, but it's not a game like a board game or a role-playing game. Like, what is your first memory of like, oh, this is a game that has these specific pieces and you use them in this specific way? You know,
Oh
what's your
man.
memories there?
All right. So I feel like I'm about to put my foot in it, but like my first memory is preschool playing Candyland and
Yeah.
being bored out of my mind. And I gotta say, I realize now looking back, it's because we were playing it as like a board game. But I realize now that the way to play Candyland, if you really want to have it make fun, is as a storytelling game. But that wasn't the zeitgeist at the time. This is
Mm.
the maybe the late 70s. I'm 50 years old. So in the late 70s, and we were just learning how to move pieces around the board with I guess that's a pull-in move, not a roll-in move. So I remember as a kid in elementary school, like having those projects where you're like, teach the class about the solar system. And all
Hmm.
we knew, the only language we had at the time for these kinds of games was roll and move. And I remember just pushing against it, be like, what else could I do with roll and move? But I didn't learn any other verbs. So I was like trying to figure out how to make roll and move strategically interesting while also learning about the solar system. So that was my earliest memory of actually messing around with like tabletop design.
Yeah.
And probably like most kids of my age, fell in love with computer games.
Mm.
But I was in a very strict household. We didn't actually play games, and especially did not play computer games. So I was not allowed to buy any computer games. And I taught myself AppleSoft Basic so I can program games, which I never actually did. But
Do you have like
the
were
desire
you
was
one of
there.
you buy the magazine and it gives you the
Oh
lines that you
God.
type in and
Yep, I tried that. Like you have to have very precise typing, which I didn't. What I ended up doing a lot of was making the cover art or the title screen. You remember the title screens? You'd boot up a game and it'd have a title screen.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. And
it's kind of
it would take like 3 minutes to load, and it would draw the lines first
yeah,
and then fill in the blocks of color, and then yeah.
yeah. I spent all my time making the title screen because I was like, this is kind of hard.
Like you were programming it to draw the title screen for your game. Is that
Well, I was trying to do one of those Zork type games where, you're doing text parsing, but I was like 10, so that might have been a little bit beyond my ability at the time, but I tried, like go north, do this. I was like, but the idea of laying out so anyway, like I started out kind of between board and computer games and
yeah.
jumping forward to the 2000s, I was still interested in video games and computer games. And so it was not until the pandemic that I really went back to board games as, hey,
Mm.
there's actually a design space to play around with here, and it's so much more accessible to me than computer games. So that's a
Well,
that's a long
and
arc.
sure. And like the pandemic is not that. I mean, you were older than 10. You had a lot more capabilities, I imagine, between your pandemic aged self and your child self, like that.
Yeah. there's two formative experiences along the way there. One was when I was associated with the Berkman Center for Internet and Society at Harvard back in the 2000s, late 2000s. Uh, I hung around the MIT campus where they were just starting up their game design lab, and there were folks there who I was like interacting with all the time on really pushing the boundaries of what games could be. And I remember having conversation with them and really trying to start conversations about how could we use games. At the time, I was really thinking a lot about moral learning and good and evil, all those kinds of things.
There was literally a
And
game called Good and Evil,
oh,
like
indeed,
back
there
at that
was.
right about that time.
Yes, there was, and we were like really like focused on ludo narrative, this and that, all that kind of stuff, right? And what I found really funny looking back on it was what they were urging as a practice on all the digital designers or developers is what they called them, is paper prototyping.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of this idea of, well, make it work on paper first. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, I'm in the board game space and everyone's like, do a digital prototype. And I'm like, what? Well, I didn't come here for that. So it was it's kind of funny how things go round and round. So that was
That
one formative experience. Yeah.
that sounds like classic grass is greener sort of thing. Like if you're trying to make a video game and I mean, I don't know. I've never made a video game, but like even like even if you're in a video game at all, like you're talking about a lot of time, I would imagine tens of thousands of dollars, like if not millions of dollars for the assets and the coding and the all that stuff. And they're like, oh, just if it works on paper first, then we proof of concept or whatever. But then
Yeah, that's exactly right.
but
Yeah.
you go to board games and it's like it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to print all these copies of the games. Like even like one great game crafter copy will set you back like $50. So just like if you build it all in tabletop art, if you build it all in tabletop simulator first, like you're saving money. Like both sides are like, I don't know.
Yeah, and actually, and it really is because it's solving for different problems, right? Like the developer problem on the video game side is that it's expensive and time consuming, but on the analog side here, it's actually getting the play tests, right? You could theoretically cram in a ton more play. I mean, obviously for digital, you can throw a game out there and get 1,000 play tests just from random downloads. Can't really do that with board games, so you're really kind of trying to optimize for that.
It's
So
taken a,
it
you have to go
actually
to a
is kind
lot
of
of
different.
conventions to get to 1,000 play
Yeah,
tests.
that's why my development cycle is so slow because I hate doing the digital testing. So I'm all analog and it's a slog, you know.
Oh, I
But
could
you know that
totally
yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, I can totally see that for your particular games because this is something I want to ask about kind of developing your all the elements that go into like what makes your game design. Like I know you first as like somebody who came and pitched a game about like drawing and using stickers and like it was this coloring book activity sort of mixed with an RPG and it's sort of like I don't know if there's a market for this, but it's a really cool idea and then I've held up draw the Bonsai Diary already once in this interview and we're going to talk about that in a second, but like another drawing game and like so I can imagine like yeah, like getting I mean you could have digital drawing tools and stuff like that, but it's definitely not the same as like sitting there with the paper and like putting the sticker on the page and then taking the color and or the crayons and coloring it in like if that's the experience you're designing for like you can't as easily simulate that digitally.
Totally. And I think that's really important in terms of what makes tabletop special, right?
Mm.
And because I like why like I've played a couple of games where it's like this is a computer game that's incredibly slow and where I am going to have to do all the paperwork, right? And I agree with Annabelle Holland that like sometimes that's cool because you actually can really take the system apart and understand it, and there's a pedagogical value to that, but as a matter of playing, it may not be the most fun because like just sorry to name drop names, but like when you're playing Gloomhaven, like this would be so cool if it was like if like the computer would just run all the things for us and we can just do all the banter and the planning and all that kind of stuff around it, right? So like I'm looking for where is tabletop special? Where is it different? Where does it give you something that you can't get just from a digital interface?
Yeah.
And so paper is one of them, and also this kind of analog engagement is another where you don't have to like follow a set path or a set system.
Yeah. So what then is your like I'm checking my questions here, my
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
thing. But like how did you then decide on this? I mean, is it just that then as like a because you could I guess you could other answers other than touching the paper and drawing on it are things like the social deduction aspect or
Yeah.
the like mystery card, like, who's everybody gets a card. I mean, I guess you can simulate those things, but that like that sort of very socially thing, like not a lot of people are playing Werewolf online. I'm sure you could, but like it's more intense to be there and look in their eyes and trying to guess whether they're lying or not, And so there are other things other than drawing that you can only quote unquote only do physically. So why the drawing one? Do you have like you grew up watching, I don't know, the afternoons watching Bob Ross paint or something like that, or was it really trying to be? Because I can imagine a bunch of answers about like universality or like appeal to children or whatever, but like, what is the answer for you? Why choose this sort of drawing focused element to your games? Why is that the thing that you decided on as like a design focus?
Yeah, so there's a dumb answer, and then there's a bigger kind of more theoretical answer. But the simple answer is that I started out making a game that was a mashup of The Quiet Year and Stardew Valley. And
Sounds
I was
good.
heading,
It's a good
yeah,
idea.
no, I mean, great idea, right? Like, so I was heading off to first break my game and then unpub. And then literally the night before I was going to go to break my game to like test it out with people outside of my family and friends, uh, I went and found out that there was an itch fund for exactly literally that exact game. Like, there was somebody who was doing a Stardew Valley, you know, skin on The Quiet Year. And I was like, on the one hand devastated, but I was on the other hand like, I'm just gonna see what happens. And I show up. It kind of worked because of course the Quiet Year is a pretty solid engine. And when I got to Unpub, I ran into like in my play tests, there was a group of people, and one of them was like, "Well, what if you?" They were just iterating on it with me, and like, "What if you just put some stuff on stickers?" And that just like connected in a way that like went off on a complete tangent, right? And it was like next thing you know, the stickers were turning into like Mad Libs, right? You're
Mhm.
using the stickers as a fill-in fill-in for a visual Mad Libs rather than a verbal Mad Libs. But that would be the very, very practical answer to like how did I end up with stickers and drawing was like I didn't. I kind of iterated my way there, and by the brilliance of one of my playtesters ended up with stickers in the mix. But I think the bigger answer goes back to your question, like, and what we were saying before about what makes a tabletop special. And when I was engaged in digital games, sorry to go a little theoretical here, but like
Absolutely. That's what I
back
want.
back in like the 2000s and later on I'll just mention in passing that I also was the executive director of iCivics, which is a educational nonprofit. We made video games that taught kids how the government works. So I have some, you know, digital game production. I didn't actually make the games, but I was like the executive producer of some of these. So I have some of that digital experience, and I think at the time I had this pretty strong theory that at least digital games, if not all games, were kind of the medium of systems,
Mm.
right? And that like this kind of systems literacy was really, really important. Like when you think about all the media that are out there, you've got film and books that are really good at giving you like the linear narrative, right? And then sometimes film can push it and you can split screen and all that kind of stuff. But very few of them can actually let you run through a system and experiment with different aspects of a system, right? So I had this big theory that I went on for quite a while that games are really the medium of systems, right? Like they have rules and you can play through the rules and you can play through them differently. And then that's how you experience a system is how do you, if you do it this way, you get one result, you do it that way, you get a different result. Whereas you read a book, it's going to be one outcome each time, unless it's a choose your own adventure. Um, and in the last 4 years, I've completely reversed my thinking around systems.
Okay, okay, because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm on board with this.
Well,
This sounds
yeah,
great.
where is this
But
going, right? Yeah, and I still do believe that games are like games and actually I would say simulation games are still the best medium for conveying systems. You want to understand climate change, you understand economics, you want to understand these kind of very complex systems. I would assert that your best way to learn those is through simulations and and adding things to it makes it more like a game, blah blah blah, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's almost like, the what is a climate change model, but like an engine for a world simulating a world, and then or people do these like they'll rather than do the prisoner's dilemma, right? They'll program like a petri
Yeah,
dish of amoebas or whatever to like study the prisoner's dilemma simulation or whatever. Like people do that.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so anyway,
Yeah, yeah. And so like when you think about games as a collection of rules, like those are systems, or you're creating anything from an economic system to a political system, usually both, right? And what I was like wishing for back, remember back when there was like the advent of graphics engines, right? Like and you'd have these 3D these different like Unity, you'd have these different 3D graphics engines, and I kept thinking to myself, like that's kind of neat, and but it always tends itself towards physical modeling, right? Like throwing a rock or shooting a bullet or running or whatever, right? And
yeah.
I'm like, what would it take to build a social engine, right? And that idea kind of stuck in my head for a while until I got to this place here with analog games, and I'm like, let's not, right? Like, why don't we actually just do that? And we don't like, you know what I mean? Like, so what I was
But
pushing, what I realized I was pushing against was actually in some ways like against the digitization, the systemization, right, of
mm,
everything. And yes, you can systematize human relationships, and you can, this could be, we could consider what we're doing right now, verbal combat, right?
right,
And I'd
right,
be
right.
I'd be rolling dice against your defense, but see, it doesn't work. Like that's not what we're really doing right now, right? I hope.
Yeah.
Am I beating you at this, or
Right,
like
right, right. We didn't establish the rules about like who the times to talk or whatever, like there you could I think I get what you're saying. It's like why simulate the world when you can just live in the world is sort of
exactly.
maybe what you're saying.
Yeah, so like so what I was ended up looking for when I was in tabletop, moving over to tabletop is like what can't you do
Hmm.
through these structured rules. And so I think there's actually an interesting boundary almost there between your more Euro systems oriented board games and your more story oriented games. And th that line doesn't necessarily just drive between board games and let's just call them RPGs for now. Right? Like I think the line is a little bit blurry, especially across party games and other kinds of genres where, you have board games that are attempting to be more narrative, and then you have RPGs that are pretty damn systematized,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
the word
yeah.
is,
For real. I, I,
right?
I
Like
mean,
it's a hardcore engine behind some of these RPGs that are more like
right,
board games.
right. I mean, I'm thinking about I mean, obviously the big dragon game is very
Yep.
it's got a lot of those very numbers based, like how deceptive are you? Roll a number and see, like, yes, you are 17 at lying. Great.
Yeah.
Like that's completely un realistic in a respect, but then like, you know, there's advantages to it, right? Because not everyone is actually good at the social performance things, and so like then you could describe like, oh, my character is sneaky. See here, I'm supported by the stat block, and yeah, I'm not poo-pooing it entirely, but like there is sort of such a different focus on that kind of game as opposed to something that is, um, I'm thinking of something like. It's just top of mind because I was just seeing his post and the other thing. There's a guy I talked to a couple months ago that he has a game that like rather than skills, you have like a background. You just choose like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm a firefighter. And then like you can just do anything that would logically be like what a firefighter would know how to do. It's just like this narrative skill set that you just put out there. And that's a very different way to simulate the world or to put out
Totally.
because what you're trying to do with a skill set like that is you just skip all that like skill rolling and stuff like that and you just describe what you're doing because he was designing something more story focused, right? So like um anyway, that's Rotted Cape second edition. If you are interested in what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, go back and find it, the interview with that guy. Anyway, yeah, so I'm just yes-anding what you were saying. So like if you
Yeah.
were going
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
with it, I don't.
Well, I mean, so and actually on that last point, I have a shitpost game that I put out like about half a year ago. It was like Cards Against Dice Against Humanity or something like that, where like another designer and I were just riffing on the idea that like exactly what you're saying, like you have skill for charisma instead of actually having charisma. So it's like, these party games, like they require, you'd actually have engage with other people. But what if that was a Euro game? Like
Mhm.
you'd have to simulate the party game in a Euro game. So it became this whole thing of like, let's beat all of the social element out of a party game by making it a Euro game where you're playing a party game. And you don't win by actually proposing the funniest thing. You win by rolling the dice to then propose the funniest thing.
Yeah, right. Which again, like some people want that, but then it does come back to
Right.
that question about like, you know, set up the why set up the simulation when you can just do the interaction instead? So like I think that leads into one of my other things. It's kind of like we were talking about a little bit ago. Your design sort of space that you've staked for yourself is this sort of element of mindfulness. And I think I'm a person who has kept a journal since I was in middle school. So like I love journaling games that are like sort of
Wow.
because it's part of my daily practice anyway to write about myself and my boring life, then like I'm like, oh, but today you get to write about like the mecha war that's happening, boom, 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 lasers, and so like that's exciting to me. I love journaling games, and so like the process of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and then writing in that voice is something that I enjoy anyway. So I love a solo game, and but I think that is sort of like akin to mindfulness in that you are having to deliberately think of things in a different way and deliberately, like with the Bonsai Diary, like you're drawing on the page and the tree is getting bigger as you draw. You can tell me, we can talk more about that specific game in just a second, but like there's the journaling prompts as well, where it's like you're not just chronicling the growth of the tree over time, but you're writing down the different things. So you are engaged with the game in this sort of very deliberate way. And um, so calling that a mindful, and the other one that I want to mention is Nap Time Sweet Phone, which is just the goofy. It's like to me, like I've known you for like over 2 years now. So like this is like I'm not like completely unfamiliar with who you are, but like when you gave me that at PAX Unplugged, it's like a folded sheet of paper and it's just like has a drawing of a bed sheet on it. And it's just like your phone needs to take a nap. Just put it to bed. And you just like lay it there and you fold the piece of paper over your phone and then you can't see the notifications. You don't see the screen light up for anything because you put your phone to bed. It's just like the most ridiculous thing to proclaim that this is a game because it's just a folded sheet of paper, but also it's not about the gamification of it. It's that like, hey, do this as an activity. It's for your mental health. Like just put your phone to bed, and it doesn't need to be so demand. I mean, it's very deliberate. I think, though it is just a silly folded sheet of paper. I like the mind behind what you're trying to do. So anyway, I've talked about and praised your games here, but like talk about that for where again, like why is that so important for you as a thing to put into your games, both the drawing and this mindfulness, like that as like again, staking your claim there, that like you've put it on the book as like this is a game about mindfulness. What does that mean for you to say that about your games?
So I'll try to keep this bounded in because this could blow out into a whole philosophical thing. But yeah, I've my most of my formal education is around very logical, wordy things. I have a JD, right? Like I have a law degree, and very logical use of words. And I now do a lot of communications, and again, use of words as a tool. I think what I found with Sticker Doodle Town, the kind of the drawing game that you talked about earlier, and now then with the Bonsai Diary, and actually I'll bring up Color Jam in a bit, is getting your brain out of these rational systems that we have
Mm,
forced it into, right? And to access the child's mind, to access your imagination and creativity. I'm looking at ways to get your body to perform a different thing, so that you actually break out of that. So you could ask, as many people do, like, well, where is the game in the Bonsai Diary? Because it's just linear. You're not making any strategic choices, right? Like you're just drawing and then you're journaling. Um, but what I'm hoping happens, and you can tell me if it worked for you or not, is that when you are doing the drawing part, your brain dissociates from this linear narrative that dominates our life. Like, first I'm going to do X, then I'm going to do Y. That there's something about both the the drawing itself, that's analog. Like, it's the most, and also not always under your control, no matter how good of an artist you are. Like sometimes you just put that extra line in there, like, okay, there's an extra line there. That happened, right? As well as getting your brain off of the words and then just letting it go somewhere else. So I don't know if that works in everybody's case, but I'm just curious if that was at least somewhat your experience.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think one thing that on the point that you just made about the lines, you're not in perfect control of your lines and stuff like that. There's like the way the Bonsai Diary is set up, there's like the draw the tree page, and then facing pages are the journal prompts, and so you get sort of this like every page, every spread is like sort of I don't know, left brain, right brain in a way, right? Because
Oh,
like
that's true too, actually.
there's the page that's like this is how you draw, and it's full of like I mean, it tells you like draw the tree, trace it from the previous page because you can see through the pages, and uh, but like add more lines to it, do more stuff, and like you're always giving these progress of like the tree's gotten bigger, expose some of the roots, draw a different pot on the page. You know, you're giving all these drawing things, but also like some of the drawing techniques is like what you just talked about. Like if you mess up a line, that's fine. You can't make a mistake because the tree grew in the last 12 years since the last prompt or whatever, and this is what it looks like now. You can't mess up. And there's a lot of support I think that you're offering in that side of it. And there's like different mention of brush strokes for drawing leaves. Try this, try this, try this. And so like there's this very guided process of drawing that I think you're trying to get people to not criticize their drawing, to be more
Yeah.
creative, let to encourage them to actually do the drawing part of it. And then you have the prompts on the other side of the page, which ask you to then think about what you did. So there is sort of this like every page spread is like a certain number of years, and the tree has grown some, and then you think about how your character thinks about it. So I think it is really has been an interesting experience. I'm probably less than halfway through the process so far. But I've made one of those generational transitions where the tree lasts longer than the people, and so like it's passed on, and so I've got to create a second character, and so like it is sort of I don't know that I quite reached the level of disassociation that you mentioned, because like it's because I'm aware of I can't it's like a curse as being a creator myself, right? I can't play a game without also analyzing what the game is doing. And so all the stuff that I just said is sort of like me noticing how the game is set up and how it's put together. Um, so it doesn't truly transport me out of myself or anything like that, but it is I do appreciate that you're encouraging people to not criticize themselves and to let what they draw be good. You know, you drew it. It's good. It's fine. You know, and then write about it and think about it. Is it. I really like what you go back to what you said earlier about like kind of you've got an education that's so much based on words and a job that's so much based on words to like provide these excuses or opportunities for other people to like get out of wordiness and express themselves in other ways is makes a lot of sense that that's where that comes from for you. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's two things there. One is on the criticism front. A lot of that comes from my experience with playtesting Stickerdoodle Town.
hmm,
I'd be going to different places, and invariably, especially adults, would say the first thing they would say as they sit down at the table is, "I can't draw."
hmm,
And that just made me sad. I mean, right? Like, why would you say that, right?
yeah,
And then and then of course, actually, the people who would say that the most tended to be the people who actually had the most skill at the table. So I found that also interesting. And so I was thinking, like, it's so important to let people have permission to be
hmm,
imaginative and to be kids again. And that's kind of linking to the second point, which is when I first started playing, I'll admit it, D&D with my kids and other kids, and they were
nothing
much
wrong with
younger.
it. Nothing wrong with D&D.
Oh, I hated it so much. It would just not do what I wanted it to do. I just started hacking it to do all sorts of other things before I discovered indie games. Anyway, like I was like astonished at how they were go off-road in ways
Hmm.
that I know that most games do go off-road, but I'm talking about really off-road, like just not even in like adults accept genre conventions, right? And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kids
yeah, yeah.
wouldn't. And at first it was a struggle and I was annoyed and I was frustrated. I was like, why don't they understand? And then it took years. It was more reflecting back and I was like beating myself up for this. I'm like, why didn't I see that as the opportunity rather than as like a obstacle? It's like they don't have
Well,
what is honestly bullshit. Like
right.
genre conventions are not how the world works. In many ways, what I saw is that the kids understood how the world works better than the adults did in
Mm,
some ways because they didn't put this overlay of narrative convention over the world. Whether your narrative convention is good guys always win or good guys always lose or nice guys finish last, whatever, right? We have all of these constructs that we tell ourselves as stories that make sense of the world and they let us survive because things don't make sense. But kids haven't, especially the younger kids, haven't developed that. So I like part of what you're also seeing me do here is I'm trying to figure out how to help people deconstruct some of those things and re-achieve that childlike approach to the world where you can see it for what it is, the artist's eye, maybe more than the child's eye, rather than like, I'm going to see this and it's an object lesson. Look, this means that, right? So that's part of what I was pushing for with I was kind of just scratching that with Stickerdoodle Town and we're like, using pictures got people out of words meaning things. So it was just a tiny little step in that direction.
yeah. I, I feel it. I feel like that's yeah, I mean, I don't know, like success is like defining where's the measurable action of like people actually because you have the feedback that this is how people are experiencing it, right? Like I don't know
Yeah.
about that, but like one step before that is like I think I can see that that is what your games are trying to do. So like you're succeeding at what you're trying to do, I think, um, without the final empirical proof of the end. Um, so I want to ask you about like sort of we've talked about Snickerdoodle Town a little bit. We talked about Bonsai Diary a little bit, but like so like I met you 3 PAXs ago, I believe is when it was, and you came and pitched Snickerdoodle Town to Wet Ink Games as like a game, and I think I said I think we were already recording when I talked about it being like sort of this new hybrid. It was sort of like appealing because it was like one of those activity books that I would get on family road trips back in the day. But then like that's not really a recognized genre, like adults especially are so like and marketability, like, oh, this is a game that fits into these categories that people are already shopping for, like it wasn't doing that, right? So
100%. Yeah.
and so like I think you did. I think I heard you did actually sell the game to someone. So that is congratulations on getting the game to be under contract and you could talk about that if you want. But like you went in, that was like a whole year of me seeing you at conventions and you talking about this one game, and like I saw a couple different versions of it, and then this year, between PAX 2024 and PAX 2025, it's like you launched your own game. So, and it's in stores because like you had a successful crowdfunding thing and you got it out into stores, and then you are like attending all of these events as like not just, hi, I'm this guy, I'm a designer, but like I'm here with this organization, and also then you were I at this PAX Unplugged, so like after 3 PAX, two full years after first meeting you, I played a game with you at PAX Unplugged this year, which is a board game, a big, tabletop board game, and lots of cards and wild things happening, and it's raccoon based, and that's
It's
like your
raccoon
design,
based.
uh, raccoon inspired. I don't know. It's raccoon themed. It's a raccoon
Yeah,
themed
yeah, yeah.
heist game.
Yeah.
And and but it's so different from what I'm saying is that like in 2025, I've seen you show up in the industry and at events as a different, not a different person, but like doing a lot more different things other than just being like, oh, I'm the person who's pitching this game. And it seems like it's taken you maybe a while to find those links and to like push out beyond that initial sort of thing from like it's like I just wanted to ask you about like what are behind those choices for you about like I'm going to actually publish this myself. I've sold one design, great, but like this one I want to get out right away, and like in less than a year you've gone from it existing or not existing to it being in stores, and so that's a different timeline, and was it just I wanted to experience that, or like I didn't want to go through 3 years of pitching this other game. I just want to get it out there because like crowdfunding exists and I could just get the money and just do it and it's done. Like, and then being involved in, you've mentioned Unpub and you mentioned Break My Game and like there's Design in the DMV and all these other places that are like, it's sort of like you're representing them when you show up in these places, but also they're giving you a platform to talk about game design as all the things that we've been talking about in this whole conversation. So anyway, I just have seen you a bunch all of a sudden, like more than, and not just all of a sudden, but like you've done a lot more in 2025, a lot more different things than you were doing the last couple of years. So like, what from your perspective, or at least that's what it looks like from the outside, right? So like, what is your perspective on what 2025 has been about like going from pitching games to selling games, going from I'm just a guy to like I'm part of all these organizations and like I'm giving advice to like other people. Like, I mean, is it just a natural? Because you made like a whole retailer friend,
Oh
how to make your
yeah.
game retailer friendly, like a whole info page. Anyway, so like that's what I'm saying. You've done a lot this year to like put yourself out there in these other ways other than just a designer. So like what is behind the scenes at like, the House of Coup that's pushing you in that direction, or is it just the natural consequence of being more involved? Like I don't know. Like what was it
Yeah.
intentional or accidental?
Yeah.
I've asked the same question a bunch of times. So like what I'll be quiet. What's your answer?
It's all about people.
Mm,
I think it's funny because I don't necessarily perceive myself as either introverted or extroverted, but I am people oriented either
yeah.
way. And so a lot of this is about finding the community and then loving the community, right? And then finding ways to engage with the things that we love together. And so um after licensing Sticker Town to Hunters Entertainment actually is the company that licensed that. Um, I was actually approached by Violet Daisy Games to for them to put Bonsai Diary on Make 100. That didn't work out for a number of complicated reasons, but that kind of left me with this like, hey, I think I still do kind of want to do this. So that one I kind of was maybe the last push of like I'm going to go this on my own, and I wanted to do it just to learn,
Mm.
really. I think Sam Dunewald was the one who published a thing about like what did he want to get out of a Kickstarter, and it was like don't lose money, learn a lot of stuff, have stuff to give to your friends. And I'm like, that's a great baseline. If
That
I
is a
can
great
hit
baseline,
that,
actually. Those are
then
three really great points.
yeah, win. If I can learn without losing money, like imagine going to college without paying for it. Like, yeah, great. Of course I want to do that, right? So that was a kind of a personal learning journey that I went through. But a lot of what happened in between was just developing like working relationships with people. So one game that we didn't talk about is Color Jam. So this is the actual coloring book game, like an actual coloring book game, and it's I won't get too much into it, but this was a co-designed with Joe Kell, who had reached out to me when there was a game crafter contest, and was like, "Well, you do coloring stuff, so why don't we work together?" And he admitted to me that he hates coloring because of a traumatizing experience in elementary school, and I'm like, "Our goal is to make a game for you."
Mm.
Right? If we can make a game for you where you like this game, like we've done it, right? So again, like for me, it was like there's a person that I care about that
Yeah.
we're gonna make this game for. And this is now under license as well. So hoping that will be unveiled soon. Here's a particularly nice finished result here. Very, very expertly colored, I would have to say. But it's a great game. But I don't have to pitch it to you right now. But it goes into all this stuff about like, developing your own narrative and then changing it as you go, right? And that's it. On first side, it's just a coloring book game, and on second side, it's kind of a area control game. But then actually, when you really get into it, it's actually a narrative building and rebuilding game because you're telling a story, but then you're like, oh, I can't actually tell that story because now I'm color jammed by the numbers and the crayons I have, so I got to change my story. And I've seen people do that, and it's remarkable how people can do that,
Yeah.
change their story to fit their situation. So that's been really fun. So that was a collaboration, and the dumpster heist, the raccoon game was it was actually that's Phil Gross's game, and I sat down with him at Umpub this past spring. He showed it to me, and I was like, I have some ideas. And next thing you know, we're co-designing. So that's also another relationship.
Yeah.
And so if that one felt a little bit more board gaming, is because Phil's coming from a little bit more of a board game as well as an improv background. So I kept trying to find ways to like leverage that expertise he has in improv to add to the game. And then finally the thing that you mentioned is the design in the DMV group. Um, and that came out of just looking around and seeing like for whatever strange reason, there's just a plethora of game design talent here in the DC area, right? Which is not what you'd first think of, right? Like
Well,
when you think creative centers of the world, you're not necessarily thinking DC necessarily.
I agree. I
But
agree, but it makes sense because like all that administrative infrastructure that has to be around DC, it's full of like very smart people who are like systems oriented and creative because they're drawing maps and like, or
all
looking at
that,
maps and like it makes a lot of sense once you apply like,
once you think about it, but your first
20 seconds
impression
of thinking
is,
about it. Yeah, it makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, but your first impression is this ain't Seattle or San Francisco or New York, right? Or a whole bunch of other places where you think of creatives. But like for whatever reason, and I was very I'm not native to here. I'm more from New York, but I was very proud of it. I'm like going around, looking at all the local game stores and seeing like they're not being recognized in their own hometown, right?
Hmm.
And so I was just thinking, well, what can we do about that? And meanwhile, I was specifically thinking about Chris from Junk Food Games, who's also local around here, who does a lot of also RPGs, but also solo and journaling games. I'm like, I just love this stuff. I'm like, why is this not in these stores? So I started from that question, right? And that's when I started talking to a local bookstore, and I'm like, okay, and they have a zine section. And I'm like, okay, if you got zines, you've got to be able to put zine games in there, right? And that conversation just blew up. And the next thing you know, we were putting on a game fair with Elizabeth Hargrave, Connie Vogelman, and Tori Brown of Votes for Women as like our headliners. And of course, Elizabeth sends this to her email list, and literally like 250 people show up. Um, and meanwhile, us indie designers had like these little outdoor tables where we were hawking our stuff. And then one thing led to another. That was just an event. It was like a one-time event, but it catalyzed this community of people who like didn't have an avenue, right? Like if you're Wingspan, you've got a publisher who's got relationships with the local stores,
Yeah.
but you're one of us indie designers, you got nothing. And so we came together and we built these uh, catalogs. I don't and
Yeah, it's
right.
it's zooming it out, but
Yeah. Oh, is it? Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn off my. But um, how do I turn off my blur? There we go. Right. So we built these catalogs where we put in them like all of these indie games that stores can order. Um, and then at the back, we're kind of a little bit free riding off of them, but like then there's all the big games that I just wanted people to know that like, did you know that Wits and Wagers and Flux, Twilight Struggle, these are all games designed by people in this region, right?
yeah.
And you find them in the store. And so we then created these little placards that you know how you can go to the store and you'll see like locally crafted jewelry or whatever. So
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
made these signs that they could just put on their games. As a result, a whole bunch of things happened. We created a community amongst ourselves, but we also, practically speaking, got our games into a whole bunch of stores that weren't carrying us before, and now they have a local section that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
And it features some of the big board games, and it features some of us little tiny indie designers who would, again, never would have shown up in a store before. So all that came out of just building a community, you
I,
know?
I love it. It's so it's like the way it should be, or it feels like that, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so
I mean,
great.
here's what we did for free RPG days. Like speaking of Origins, which I think I saw you as at as well, right? Like this is a collection of our one pagers, and we gave them away for I forgot we all chipped in, and we just gave these away for free to
Yeah.
local game stores. you know,
That's free
because
RPG day. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah. So we
how it
funded it
goes.
ourselves, right? Like, we call ourselves an artist collective because that's how we think of ourselves. We're artists. We have games as a medium. A lot of us are pretty hardcore indie. Um, and so just simply creating community. And what's amazing is like the community just starts doing things on its own. Like it's not you anymore. It's this group of people. And then
Yeah.
people are figuring out, hey, I want to be at this event. I want to put on this thing was like two people came up with this idea and they just did it. So it's been amazing just having community and having that community to support each other. And again, I'm very lucky. Like here in this region, we have Break My Game and Unpub have a major presence here. So it's kind of easy to leverage that. But I think this is something that's possible in most parts of the country because game design has become a hobby into itself. There's enough game designers in almost any part of the world, honestly, where you can get
Yeah.
together and create this kind of a community.
Uh, I I I'm inspired. Like I mean, we laugh here in Louisville that there's more designers here than you would expect. But maybe you're right. Maybe every place has that, right? And I think there's we've got local nerd organizations and stuff like that, and under like a bigger umbrella of nerdiness generally. But like, yeah, there has been discussions about like, is there enough energy to set up like a local repeating playtest group or whatever within the people who are designing games here in my city, it does feel like, you know, the DC Baltimore area is got more people in it, so like maybe it's easier to do. But like, and you as you were flipping through, I saw Graftbound and I saw um uh scripted games, and those are people that I know. So like, I'm sure all the other pages are people that I don't know yet, that I should meet, but like, uh anyway, it's very inspiring to me to see what you've done and been part of in creating this, like you said, this community, and it like being led by people the whole way. It feels like it's been a big year for you in that respect, like, and so I just want to congratulate you on having a big year and like really, I don't know, putting out a lot of positive vibes, and like you were just talking about, like it just, quote unquote, all you have to do is just get some people together and do it. And it really sometimes is a lot of work, but sometimes it isn't. Somebody says like, "Hey, I'm excited about doing this thing," and then 250 people show up. That's a lot of success, Like, yeah. So I wish you energy and to keep that going, because like it's been really neat to see from a distance that's a thing that's happening for you and your region right now. So,
Yeah,
and
thank you. I mean, and it doesn't come at a cost, right? Like I think my design has slowed down quite a bit this year, right? Because I've putting on a Kickstarter non-trivial, organizing
non-trivial.
these things non-trivial, right? So next thing you know, like your time is filled up with all these other things, and you're not designing at the same speed that you might be. That's okay, right? Like, but yeah, I don't want to give the illusion that like you said, it's not like you just do it. Like, it takes time, it takes intentionality, it takes a lot of pushing sometimes or pulling. But then once you get it going, it's like it can keep spinning like a gyroscope. Is that the thing that keeps spinning?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
the,
It's
the
got the
community has its own energy, right? And then
right.
then you can kind of let it go a little bit, and so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Uh, it it is. It's hard to. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get to make that transition. Like, and it sounds like you didn't start with a one person who was doing a thing. It sounded like you started as a community, as a
Oh,
group.
absolutely,
So
yes.
like, like transitioning from like, oh, I'm doing this thing and there are people that gathered around me, and then but I want to move out of the center and put like a group of people in charge, and I can be part of the group, but like I don't want to do all of it anymore. And sometimes that doesn't survive, the transition when that
Yeah, and
happens.
I want to
So
be also super clear. Like Lime was a huge contributor. Like he had a regular meetup here of TTRPG people already, and so there was already this kind of community that I just kind of hijacked in some ways, right? And we ended up merging the two communities. So
yeah,
you never start from zero. There's always something. There's always these social
yeah, yeah.
networks that exist, and you kind of build on them. So it's never just one person doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's great. I love to have seen it, and I hope it keeps going for you. All right, Gene, we've been talking for a little while. I'm gonna check and see if I've got any other important questions that I want to ask you about. I don't think I have
Oh,
any
let's get to
other.
the unimportant questions, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is I want to throw it over to you. And like, what do you have any like? I mean, we've talked about a bunch of your designs or the designs that you're working on, anything like that. Is there is you you don't have an active crowdfunder right now that I know of, so that's not there. You can't pitch that. But is there something that you do want to tell us about that like is you're currently active on project or coming soon sort of thing that you want to describe the if people have uh maybe they if they already checked out Bonsai Diary and what's next from you, like I don't know
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
kind of your next thing or you anticipate
Well,
being your next thing.
so commercially speaking, like, Color Gem should be coming out next year. So that's the coloring book game, and I'm excited for that. And I think timing wise, it should be great that it's actually I just turned the blur on, so this is just a big mess here that you're looking at, I'm sure. Um, the but timing wise, it's kind of like, God knows what's happening with tariffs right now. So
Yeah,
a
well,
a game that can be print and play as well as shippable, and you can put it on shelves and it can be printed domestically. Like that's kind of turned out to have been a pretty smart timing. Not smart, just a nice coincidence. We didn't have
yeah,
any intelligence behind that. But so hopefully that should be coming out and announced in more formally in January with the publisher and out there in the world. I believe there may be a crowdfund there as well. And as you mentioned, Phil Gross and I are working on Dumpster Heist. And what we're really trying to explore there, and what I've been, as you can tell, what I've been pushing at for a long time is this: where is that uncanny valley between the board games and storytelling games,
yeah.
right? And can we build some kind of bridge across that valley, right? So in a lot of ways, and actually, I would say thanks to your playtest, you were the ones who encouraged us to go. Actually, frankly, even dig in even more into some of the mechanics we were borrowing. We were borrowing mechanics from like Apples to Apples and Cards Against Humanity, and you had suggested to us, well, what if it worked like this? And honestly, we're like, if we started doing that, and it actually brought us more in line with Apples to Apples and a party game format. So we're essentially taking something that is a known party game formula and stringing it together narratively, and we're really interested in testing, like, can that break out of just RPGs
Hmm.
and into something that's more like party games. I'm not going to pretend that like your average party game player is going to like want to do a story game, but can we reach a new audience who want to do story games but don't want to roll funny dice or whatever,
Yeah,
right? So that's what we're really interested in doing is I want to bring joy to people who didn't think of themselves as somebody who would want to play that kind of game.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so that's a lot of what I'm exploring there. And as far as journaling games are concerned, I'm having conversations with folks because I really feel like there's something that's going to explode there. Because if you describe it as journaling games, it's like a niche within a niche, right? But when you think about the larger world of who wants to do this, there's a much larger community of people who want to write fiction, right? If you look at the number of YouTube views on a video about world building, it's millions of people. I don't know what that reflects, but I suspect it reflects that there's a lot of people who want to do a lot of the things that our games offer, whether it be like Ben Robbins games, right, in terms of like
hmm
world building like that,
yeah,
or Avery Alders, or any of these. So I feel like there is this possibility of journaling games being positioned as something that like is a creative writing tool, right?
right.
And then yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that the name journaling game is sort of a trap almost because it's like, like, oh, I don't journal. I don't want to write about things. I don't want to do that, but if it like just changing the name to some sort of like, oh, it's a solo world building activity, or it's like
Yeah,
it's a, it's a, I don't know, a script writer's notebook game that like lets you
exactly.
make the film that you want to see or what like I understand what you're saying like these
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
other because like I described myself as like somebody who I like journaling games. I like to write as a fantasy person about
yeah.
what has happened to that fantasy person. But like that I'm in the very niche that is journaling games, specifically journaling at like I love that. But that's a niche, like you said, a niche of a niche. So like yeah, how to expand the same activity a little more broadly, right? Like, I mean, I think there's plenty of games that, like, I mean, obviously, Thousand Year Old Vampire is such a big, that's I think right now, Thousand Year Old Vampire is is the Mount Fuji of the Hokusai set of prints. It's always there in the background somewhere. Like, if you ever, I don't know, that's like a silly
I thought
analogy,
you were
but
gonna say 1,000 pound gorilla, but okay, go ahead.
no, it's a thousand year old vampire though. Um, but like, I, I should like what I was saying is like it's like in like the collection of Hokusai prints, like 24 views of Mount Fuji or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's in all of them, and the
that's right.
difference, it's either close or far away or whatever. It's just always there, right? So like a game like Thousand Year Old Vampire, which has had so much impact and obviously is a
Totally.
fantastic product as well. Like it's sort of like currently, I think, sort of the penultimate example of what like a solo journaling game can be. But I don't think that's all that a solo journaling game can be. I don't think we don't all have to be trying to make exactly that. So yeah,
Yeah,
that,
totally. And yeah, like I think, to the markets, like there's the fiction writers, right? And so they're the gamey games that are world building can really appeal to that. There's a huge journaling world out there too, right? Like all the bullet journaling and all that kind of
mhm.
stuff that happens. So I think that there's a little bit of a split there where are you writing an imaginary world or are you introspecting, right? I find what's really interesting about these journaling games is it gives you that distance from yourself that you can introspect if it's too painful to just introspect. For me, I
Mm.
don't do that. So having that layer of safety, that little bit of
Yeah,
distance gives me the ability to do the thing that I otherwise wouldn't do if it was just raw, if it was just literally the thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So I'm very curious if that's something that can add to people. And I'm also experimenting well along the lines of some ideas that Paul Zega has with the idea of like a journal, a game that's like you put it in a journal,
Mm.
right? And so it's essentially a large bookmark that you put in a journal. So I have a thing that I put out this year, midlife crisis game about where you make a wish and you split in half, and then one half of you goes and gets all of your wishes fulfilled, and the other half stays at home.
Yeah,
That one left behind is just following the other one on social media, who's constantly posting about their wonderful life.
yeah. That's
Uh,
that's a.
so
I read that, but I haven't played it yet. So like that's on my stack to play.
yeah,
That's a challenging one. A little
it's
bit,
tough because it's a commentary on parasocial relationships, but it's also and jealousy, and also it's a commentary on midlife crisis, which
Yeah,
I'm solidly in the middle of right now. So, but what I was doing is experimenting with this format, right? Can you stick this? So we're not selling you a journal.
yeah,
Like you can buy whatever journal you want and you stick this in there. This is Paul's. Um, and so that's there's all these different formats that we have yet to even figure out about how to
yeah,
make this work for
yeah.
regular people, you know?
Well, I think you were saying that you don't know why I wanted to talk to you, but like, Gene, I think you have some of the most amazing ideas, like the things that you've talked about here, like the intention that you're bringing, the like wide perspective that you have from like all the different things that you've done. You're bringing perspectives that I don't hear other people talking about into the industry. You've got energy, you've got ideas, you've got like actionable things that you're doing. Like I think you're doing a lot of really great things, and I cannot wait to see all the stuff that comes from you in the next few years because I think and because and your design partners and everybody, like I think you're a light that is shining in this industry, and I'm so glad that you talked to me today about like kind of what is behind that for you and where you're coming from, what you're trying to do, because I think it's I think it's amazing. You're doing good work. You're doing good work, Gene. Uh,
I'm moved.
before
Thank you. It's an honor to be here again. It really is. So I thank you.
uh well, if people want to check out your games, if people want to buy some of this stuff, you've made it as easy as you can to get a hold of your stuff. Where is that? Where can people find your stuff, buy your games, download your one pagers, check out your stuff? What are your links? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so most of my stuff is out on itch.io, right? StickyDoodler dot itch.io, whatever. Probably throw that in the notes somewhere. And from
It
there,
will
I
be
link off
there.
to a
It'll be
whole bunch
there.
of things. Yeah, so you can get the Bonsai Diary from Tabletop Bookshelf and from Indie Press Revolution. and on hard copy, and hopefully maybe in your friendly local game store, because I was trying to figure out how things work in local game stores. So you can also find on itch.io that thing you were talking about in terms of a guide to making your game marketable in retail environments that came from talking to retailers, and I'm hoping to keep expanding that as I keep learning more, because that's certainly not the be all and end all. And that's also linked from there. And I'm probably most commonly found on Bluesky as Sticky Doodler.
Excellent. Lots of ways to get a hold of Gene. Once more, thank you so much for being here, for talking to me through your designs and your your process. It's been a pleasure to hear from you today. Thank you everybody who watched this video. I don't know what would you follow yourself on social media if you bifurcated? Tell that in the questions. What wish would you want to have granted so that you could follow yourself on social media? I don't know. Answer that in the questions in this comment. Uh, and thank you. So again, thank you for watching. Gene, thanks for being here. We'll see everybody in the next one.